can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all here on a Wednesday. I'm new to Wednesdays, so hopefully I'll figure it out. I'm more of a Tuesday, Saturday kind of guy, but I don't know. It's funny. Alex has been around Dharma Bum Temple since 2007, so really since our first year, 16 years. And, he goes times where he says, I'm going to take a break. And so this was one of those times. And so Bettina, she's phenomenal. She's one of the first people I actually met 20 years ago at Shifeng Temple when I started down the street in 2003. And she's been doing her own practice and just finished a training recently with Tara Brock and Jack Cornfield with their program. So she's going to lead a new Wednesday night program in July. But that left June, and Alex was ready to take a break. So I said, all right, well, I'll do my best to fill in for 4 weeks. And I was thinking about what to call this. And people always ask, not always, they often say, because I call the class I lead Intro to Buddhism and Meditation. So people often ask, and it's usually the person who's been to one class, no offense if this was you. But someone after one class says, okay, well, what's next? Where's when do I get the advanced teachings? And my response usually is, if you can go all day and do nothing but think good thoughts, speak good words, and do good deeds, and just be nice to people, then you're ready for the advanced class. I will be nowhere near that class, but you let me know how it is. So I kind of joked about saying, well, I'm going to call this the advanced Buddhist class for 4 weeks. But then I feared that nobody would show up because well, it's the advanced class. I'm not ready for that, So I kept going back and forth on should I call this something different? And then I just announced it as a special class, And so for those of you who are showing up for the special class, I think every class we do is special. So this is it, my friends. We're just going to sit and we're going to be together for an hour, and I have no idea what's going to happen or what we're going to say or what you're going to say. But we're just going to enjoy being together for, the hour that we're here. And for those of you who are brand new and just showed up on a Wednesday night for the first time, welcome. To those of you who came looking for Alex, I'm sorry. I'll start meditation in a minute, and as I close my eyes, you can then sneak out the back door. And for those who want something special, it's as special as it gets, man. So, I'm glad we're here. So that's my intro to this wonderful 4-week adventure that we're going to have together. And once we get started after meditation, if anybody has any ideas or themes or anything that you think we could focus on for the next 3 weeks, because this week will already be done, let me know. Yeah. So, is there anyone here for the first time? You all look familiar. Yeah, you've all been here. Cool. All right. So we'll start with a meditation practice, a special meditation practice. For those who are joining virtually, welcome. Thanks for being here. Glad you could make it. Feel free. There's a chat box on your screen somewhere. Feel free to say hello. So we'll start with the meditation. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. Right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Meaning, don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. So posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are in a cushion, often it helps. Slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, also just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the shoulders, hands are on the knees or lap. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. letting go of expectations, letting go of judgment from the practice, just sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, just sitting, breathing. body's still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. So you slowly open the eyes. Slowly beginning to move. The most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in and where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It is simply direct perception into the present moment and being with life as it arises. And that is not easy to do. Because as life arises, we feel discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction. The Buddha called this dukkha. And we constantly try to run away from it. And we spend our entire lives running. And this practice is learning to sit or stand, but to be with things as they are. And that's why we call it a practice. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, and simply learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter every moment of your life. So I think, as always, I really just want to kind of throw it back to you all. And I always really just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And we'll use the rest of our time this evening to do that. So, and again, for those who are joining virtually, thank you for joining this very special Wednesday night meditation. Glad you could be here. Same thing, the chat box somewhere on your screen as you are. Nice to see you all. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them there and I'll do my best to respond as well. I would always joke with Alex because, you know, I'm the old, and I'm actually getting old too, so I'm the old Zen guy. And I always say I'm not the nice guy, and Alex led the loving kindness practice. And, you know, periodically over the years, I would fill in for Alex once in a while. And I would always say, you know, I'm not so loving or kind, but I'll do my best to do a loving kindness practice, you know. And then people say, oh, yes, you are. And I'm like, nah, you don't know me. Really not. But so we'll open up to questions. Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that you're sitting with, and go from there.
Exploring my own mind, and I learned that I have to just let it just be at the moment. And I've been befriending my mind and being not comfortable, but being at the moment in my mind. But somehow I believe I have expectation. How do you befriend your mind? How do you explore it?
Yeah. without expectations. So yeah, so just to paraphrase for those who maybe virtually didn't hear it, the question is that you started out by saying you've been exploring your mind, befriending your mind. How do you befriend the mind without having expectations? First off, it's beautiful practice to begin to explore the mind, what it does, all of its madness, all of its insanity. I'm talking about me, not you, but just to observe it and become friends with it. Because before we even get to the expectation part, so much of our lives we've been exploring our mind and we don't like what we see or what we think or what it makes us feel. So we often spend a lot of our time with these really not so loving or kind thoughts towards ourselves. And that starts at a really young age for whatever reason, and then it just continues. So again, first, I think it's great, and give you credit. Hopefully, you're proud of the fact that, like, wow, I want to be friends with my mind, right? And then the second part, as far as how do we do that and not have expectations, I think part of the challenge initially, and you may already know this, is that once we begin to explore the mind and become friendly with it, then we immediately want it to be better. That's just the word I'm using. We want it to be better. We want it to be calmer. We want it to be more, whatever. We want it to be something other than what it is. And not just with our mind, but with everything. We do this in life. And this really is, when you look at the root cause of Buddhist teachings and the cause of our suffering, and this is greed. Right? This is the first cause of our suffering, is wanting more. And this also happens with observing ourselves. Anyone in this room judge themselves? Hello, what do you think got us here to begin with? All right? None of us were just cruising around perfectly peaceful and happy. And we're like, yeah, I'm good. Nothing wrong with me. I'm going to go to learn about that Buddhist meditation stuff because I'm really bored, right? We judge ourselves constantly. We critique ourselves. I talk about this all the time, but most of our houses, wherever we live, are filled with like 30 mirrors, like literal mirrors. We look in the mirror 1,000 times before we leave the house, and then we get in the car and we look in the rearview mirror just to see if we've changed. Like, really, from the front steps of wherever you live to the 30 steps or whatever it is to go to your car, you think the look changed all that much, Like, maybe my hair grew from point A to point B, I don't know. But so we're constantly in these wanting things to be different. And I'm really just pointing out the obvious, and I haven't answered your question at all. I recognize that. But part of overcoming greed is bringing the practice of generosity into the way we perceive ourselves and the world around us. And I think at the heart of a generosity practice is gratitude. And you know me, I never like to give answers, but I think something to focus on as soon as you find yourself, okay, there's my mind. As the Buddha taught, pleasant thoughts, unpleasant thoughts, neutral thoughts. As we observe these pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral thoughts, and if the thoughts are unpleasant, and then we start to kind of judge ourselves and critique ourselves and want our mind to be better, just be grateful for even being alive. Be grateful for the practice of watching the mind. Be grateful for a spiritual journey that you're on. That was a big part of my practice, was learning to not hate myself. I was like, wow, I'm an asshole, but I can be okay with that, right? That was really part of it early on. I had to be really honest with who I was and how I was, and love that person as well, and be grateful for even having the opportunity to explore that and ultimately working towards changing. Hard to do, but try to sink into some place of gratitude when your mind starts to expect and want things or you to be so different. We're all just humans, work in progress, doing the best we can with what we got. So,
Thank you.
yeah. So there's a, there was a hand and then I'll go here. Yeah, go ahead.
The challenge I have is being still. I have so much interaction with devices, and computers, and phones, and people in my house, and it's just being still is real difficult. One of the benefits for me coming here is I get to be still with other people,
Yeah,
and that's a neat community for me. That's healing for me. So
definitely. Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. And, I think that, 20 years ago or whatever it is, prior to the cell phone madness that we all are in now, even then, I think we had a hard time being still. I think it's more difficult now, definitely, with access to literally the entire world, like sitting in our, pockets. But being able to, as you say, to come to sit with Sangha and set all that stuff down, metaphorically or literally, is super important. And, it's one of the beauties of sitting with people. The odds are while you're sitting there, you're probably not going to get up and like walk up here and see if the TV can turn on, right? And I think the challenge is, can we create that same environment at home or wherever else we are? And it's difficult to do, but it can be done. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. It's actually similar to, there's a comment here, and thank you, RB, for saying you feel so special, referring to my earlier comments about the special class. I have a suggestion for a possible theme related to loving kindness. I would be curious to know more about community/Sangha, Buddhist teachings on it, and your experience in Taiwan with DBT, etc. So I appreciate you sharing that. I think that, and you're really presenting this more as a theme based on what you said for the now, 3.25 weeks that we'll be able to spend together. But I think to touch on it briefly, at least at this moment, you've got 45 years of the Buddhist teachings. And at the very beginning, when we take refuge in the Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and at the start and pretty much end of just about every Buddhist thing going on all over the world for the last 2,000 plus years, it's based in what they call the three jewels, the Triple Gem, the Buddha, which is the Buddha nature, the awakened being that we all are, the Dharma, which are the teachings, and the Sangha, the community. So again, you have, as is often said in Buddhism, 84,000 paths to awakening and endless teachings, and yet there's three jewels that hold it all together. And one of them is the Sangha. And for me, that's the most critical. I talked a little bit about this the other night, but I made a comment of something to the effect of all the things that I have personally wanted to do and not done because of the Sangha. And so I think that it's important that we recognize what is for everybody sitting in this room, what is your relationship? What is your dynamic? What is your interpretation of how the Sangha impacts you? And if you're newer to the Dharma Bum Temple or newer to Buddhist practice, then it might not seem like it has a big impact on you. But even in your example right there, like, wow, this is an hour. You're not looking at your phone. You're not looking at the TV. You're not listening to somebody scream, right? So even in these subtle ways. And then we think of like bigger ways that Sangha, well, let me throw it out to you all. Quick couple lines. How has Sangha, how has community, whether it's this community or any Buddhist community, how has it impacted you?
one of the ways for me is, even when I'm not here, if I'm distressed about something, I can think about the times I've spent here.
Yep.
The very first night I was here, it was raining outside, and we were all together full.
Yeah.
And I still recall that brings me down into some peace and some sense of centering, and So that's.
Beautiful. So being able to recall what it's like to be with Sangha when you're not here to calm you down, bring you some peace. What else? What has Sangha done for you? Yeah.
The depth of sharing that, I'm part of a home group through another center, and the depth of sharing, it's just, it deepens my awareness of my connection to others and the shared path that we're going on.
Yeah.
And there's wisdom within the group that, that I learn from other people. Yeah, getting different perspectives about the same thing,
Definitely.
So it's not just me in my mind trying to figure it out. It's, and part of being being part of this collective consciousness is being called to do greater good, to do good things, all of that.
Yeah,
So,
beautiful. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just feel less alone, right? It's the togetherness feeling.
Yeah.
Also the reminders of the skillful habits, of generosity, wisdom, compassion, right? Which is why we're here.
And for those at home who didn't hear, just in essence to feel less alone, the togetherness, to be with others. I saw it, and
Yeah, for me, it's helped me really get sober, and like whenever I'm really stressed out about a family issue, I would always think of you, and I just think, what would Jeffrey do?
thanks.
No pressure there.
No pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Nobody ever really asked me what I would do. I just sit up and say stuff. You think I do all this stuff I talk about? Come on. No. Thanks for sharing. I'm not going to repeat that, but yes, I appreciate it. What else? Anyone else want to share? Yeah.
I guess the extension of what you said is that, like, remembering the kindness of others, that there are other people
Definitely. The kindness of,
that are there.
yeah, to remember the kindness of others and be around others. What else? Anyone?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it kind of makes, not even just the meditation, but I think it just makes like worries seem a little bit smaller, that other people, everybody kind of has the same, mind and same kind of general set of problems, but some people might even have it a lot worse than you, and sharing space with people that, that need this as much or more than you do, and just puts things in perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
I love running into people outside, people that I've met here,
Yeah.
and seen here outside other places. For me, it's a constant reminder. They're like a safe space. They're like a mutual understanding. There's something about them, even if I don't know them very well and only seen them once or twice. You're like, it's like a familiar,
Yeah.
So, and I like seeing that mirror of myself, that familiar, instead of seeing myself as the guy who's cutting someone else off on
Right.
the freeway or yelling or whatever. I'm seeing myself in a beautiful light, and I love that. And I love being here, but I absolutely adore seeing all of you
Outside.
out there in the matrix.
Yeah.
Where-
That's, it's really because a couple of you, some beautiful responses, but I think it is interesting to think about what this is doing, because that is the practice. I always say it's not about just this hour a week or whatever that you're here. How does it impact you outside? So it's beautiful to hear people share about what is following with you, what is carrying with you when you're outside. There was a couple of comments here. Sangha helps me feel not alone. Another one is Sangha helps me feel like I'm less of a separate self in the world. Yeah, definitely. Anyone else want to share on that? Yeah.
We've been having quite a while as an advocate, and during COVID, when we couldn't come, and I would try to do it online meditation, and even though you're doing a silent meditation, by myself in front of the computer screen is absolutely useless. If I'm not sitting in this room, feeling the energy of everybody around me, taking it all in, because we're all putting out something out there. And I couldn't do it. It really did not work for me. So so happy when we got back, and I was all blah blah blah. But you're coming together for a silent meditation makes no sense. We're not gonna say anything.
Try leading that, man. You know how hard that was? Yeah. Thanks. Saw a hand, I think, somewhere over here. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I think before I came here, I was I was kind of stuck on forcing things.
Ah.
And I'm learning more to just accept and flow with things that just aren't.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
'cause
beautiful,
that takes away the frustration, actually.
definitely.
I want things, but what is that?
Yeah, less frustrated, more just kind of going with the flow and recognizing, like you just said, you want things. What is that? Recognizing like, wow, we really do roam around all day long like animals just wanting things, and we don't even always recognize it. We just like are in this constant state of wanting, craving, desiring. And, and the Buddha taught there are healthy cravings, healthy desires, right? But do we even realize that we're wanting and craving things all day long? And that's like kind of mind blowing when you stop to think about it. Like, wow, all day. Just like, my mind's funny. Who remembers the game Hungry Hungry Hippo? Right? That was like my favorite game when we said, oh wow, did you say, oh wow, yeah. That was like my favorite game when I was a kid. And so when I was just giving that like response to you about we just roam around wanting things all day long, and I had the image of just like grabbing things all day long, and then the image of Hungry Hungry Hippo. And if you don't know that game, just like Google it. I could probably watch it on YouTube. But it's just like that constant, we're just like grabbing things all day long. Mentally, physically, and emotionally. And this whole practice is about being present and being with what is and setting things down in a way. Yeah, we're just like grabbing. There's another comment here from the same person who asked it. It is surprising how connected I feel to the DBT, even on Cyber Sangha. It was especially important in the pandemic. Overall, it makes me feel less alone with the struggles of being human. Yeah, beautiful. The pandemic, nobody ever wishes or that upon anyone. And one of those things that came out of it was really the focus on the virtual Sangha community, because it's really all we had. And I still remember when Maggie and I put that sign up, March 12th, 2020, we're like, well, let's put this sign up that says when we'll close for 2 weeks and we'll see what happens. March 12th, 2020. We closed. The day later, Disneyland closed because we figured Disneyland was checking to see what we were going to do. And Disneyland was like, well, if the Dharma Bum Temple closed, I guess we should close. So, and I remember 2 weeks, and we're like, well, let's see what this thing does. And then we were 3-4 weeks later, or 3-4 months later, and we're like, oh man, this is for real. And so that was when we really began to focus on this virtual thing, which, makes it sound like we spent hours of preparation. We already recorded stuff. We just recorded more and we got a better camera. So it's not like we spent months preparing to sit on Zoom silently, but it really did begin to reach a lot more people. And when it was all you had, it was all you had. But it sure was difficult staring at this. And, the days I did it from here and the space was empty. Like I really tried to see all of you in that tiny little thing, but it was hard. Yeah, what else on that or anything really? Yeah, Steve.
I've been struggling with reaction or response, and are they different within the practice? And if they are, what are some tools around that? So you've mentioned people coming from, a lot of people come from trauma, and it was resonating with a story about a gentleman, kid you're working with, and he went to the party and he got into the argument and ended up hitting the guy after all. So I was like, wow, well, within that there is reaction and response, and I struggle a lot with that reaction and trying to increase that time of breathing to get myself to have, I guess, a good response or an interaction. And like you have, like in my head, I'm struggling, like you have to have, I guess, some response in life, and a lot of times the reactions I have are based on the trauma that I've carried with me in the past. So I don't know if I'm making any sense.
You're making complete sense. Yeah. No, great question. And so reaction response, really your question as I hear it is around how do you increase the amount of time and that gap to where you cannot be triggered and react so quickly in doing things that are harmful to self or others. All right, I'm paraphrasing obviously. And what's interesting is you said a lot of your responses are based on trauma. Now, let me, because I do talk about that a lot, but just to look at it a little bit differently, which may be how you meant it anyways, but I just want to point this out, is to understand that our reactions aren't necessarily based on trauma. The trauma it's an experience that we're carrying, and so we're triggered from trauma. But I just see based on and triggered as two separate things, right? So how do we slow down our reaction time? And so much of our conditioned behavior in our life is about quick, go, 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 fast, 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 right? There's an acronym that I learned years ago somewhere, SOBER. And it's used for this exact purpose, right? The first one is when something happens, when you know, and these all happen, this SOBER happens real quickly, but to walk through them a little slower, when you're triggered and you recognize you're about to use the metaphor of the kid who punched the guy, and you realize, I'm angry, I'm gonna punch someone, and whatever that response is for you, could be yelling, could be the middle finger on the road, could be, whatever it is, stop. Obviously, if you're driving on the freeway, I don't expect you stopping, but stop. Just freeze. The second one is to observe. Observe what's actually happening. Meaning, observe your heart rate, the visceral reaction, the feeling of anger, the shortness of breath, whatever is going on. Observe it. Observe how you feel and what you're sitting with, and also observe the situation. And then breathe. Take 1, 2, 3 deep breaths, whatever you can. Right? If you can only muster one, then boom, 1 deep breath. And then the E, I think, is really, they're all important, but then expand. Expand to recognize that this situation that you're observing and experiencing that moment, when you expand, take yourself out of it as if you're like over here watching it. Like a movie. When you watch a movie and you get like a character in the movie is doing something like really harmful, do you get up and like punch the movie screen? Well, maybe. I've never watched movies with any of you here really, but right? The idea is hopefully you don't. And so you're observing it. You become a lot of times in Buddhism, people talk about become the spectator. Right? And expand to where you can then look at what's going on and realize that your life, Stephen, is so much more than that one moment. But in that one moment, and we're triggered, we're just ready to throw that punch because we think that what's happening right there is like and sometimes, again, life-threatening situations, please remove yourself. Harmful situations, please remove yourself. But most of the time, these are little things that will be meaningless like 2 days from now. But at that moment, we're ready to punch someone. So expand. And then after you've stopped, observe it, take a deep breath or 2 or 3, expand, begin to become a spectator, then respond. And ideally, if you have slowed yourself down and looked at it for what it is, which is just some nonsense, your response will be drastically different. And does that make sense? Now, the challenge, for all of us is that this takes time, right? Kind of like the story with the college kid who, he recognized, hey, I need to slow down, take some deep breaths, and then he punched him. But he still recognized. So the more you practice meditation, the more you explore the nature of your mind, the easier this will become. But it does take time. It's not just like, you do it once and then you're golden. I mean, if it was that way, that'd be great. And I hope it is for you. But chances are, if we've been triggered and responding to things in an unhealthy way for 40 years, it's going to take more than 4 days to kind of cut through that cycle. Yeah. Hope that helps. Yeah, for sure. I thought you were going to share your experience of how you got here. Can I completely embarrass you, or do you want to do it yourself? Yeah. That's what I thought you were going to share.
No,
Great question, but
I think go ahead.
you want me to embarrass you? I think your word was, maybe it wasn't terrified. It was, what was your word about coming here?
I was scared.
Scared. So, do you want to tell it or should I?
Well, sure. Or you can we can do it together.
Okay, so Stephen rolled in about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And, I was down in the Buddha for You and chatting, first time here. And he says, yeah, I've been following you all on, virtually for about 2 years. And I've been scared to come in. I think you said you felt like, it was like overwhelming
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
to show up here the first time.
Yeah.
After watching it virtually for, how long? 2 years.
Yeah, it was, I don't know. I started watching on a couple of times, and I think with a lot of people during the pandemic, it was not hard for some people, but I really benefited from the slowing down, and I was working from home,
Mm-hmm.
and I got sober right before the pandemic, so I was doing that during the pandemic, and now that we're on the other side of this, and we had lost during that time period, and it's just always been in the back of my mind, like I want to come in here, but I don't know whether it was the fear of the place or the fear of maybe what I was going to explore in myself, in coming here, because I knew it was not a calling or a pulling, that I just felt like it. So I just leaned into it. I came here, I was in traffic and I was driving by, I was like, just go. And I showed up and trying to lean into my fear, and that's when you walked up and just verbal vomit and just like, hi, I'm here, I'm scared, I'm overwhelmed. What you got for me?
Yeah. Not yet. We're used to, but like you can do the first timers, you can see the look on their face, like I'm here, what do I do now? So that was great. Well, I'm glad you showed up, and I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you've conquered that fear. Actually, bring up a good point, and then I think we'll close with this thought. But what you said, for those who didn't hear it, was that you didn't know if it was the fear of the place, the scary, whatever, new place, or if it was the fear of what you were going to begin to explore about yourself. And I saw a lot of head nods when you said that in here, and that's no joke. Because as I often say, that this path and this practice really is it's a mirror. And it's not just like early on learning about this cool thing that was taught in India 2,500 years ago, right? It's something that is applicable to your life right here, right now. And it forces you, if you kind of lean into the practice, it forces you to say, okay, what's going on in my head and in my heart? And we've ignored that, many people, for a long time. So we don't always want to look at that. And when you begin to look at that, yes, it can be a bit scary. So I applaud you for saying, hey, I'm just going to go for it. I used to always say, could only be miserable and depressed for so long before you just got to do something to get out of it. And once you hit that place of there's got to be a better way, then I think you're ready to explore it. So, all right, so I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained be transferred to those who need it most. few quick announcements before you head out. Thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple about 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. And so we do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those of you who show up. So, thanks for showing up. Different classes every night, as most of you know. Pretty large recovery community, so anyone battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be. There's always something going on with that. And we do have, we like to explore the schedule a little bit and change some things and add some new things. And so there'll be some, some changes coming up, which is always good. Bettina, like I said, she'll start in July. But for the next 3 weeks, we'll continue to figure out what is this special Wednesday night going to be. So thanks for showing up and making it special. We're also loosely talking about, and I'll just kind of plant the seed, a new class on Sundays. It'll be 1 to 3 most likely, and it'll be a longer sit. It'll be a 2-hour, 1 to 3, with about 90 minutes of sitting, and then about 30 minutes of exploring the Heart Sutra. So it's not something that, we would want people to come for only 30 minutes or an hour. For those who really want to work towards 1.5 to 2 hour sits, that's what we'll do. And we're just kind of loosely talking about that right now, but that may start relatively soon on Sundays, maybe 1 to 3, but we're still kind of toying with that. So, just looking at other stuff that we can add and continue to really make sure that we take care of the people who show up here. So thanks all for being here. I wish you well. Have a good night. Oh, and if anybody